The morning the glass walls of Evelyn Carter's penthouse office reflected her own exhaustion back at her, she finally admitted what no board report ever would: success had not prepared her for silence. Not the peaceful kind that comes after a long day, but the heavy, aching quiet of 3 children who had never laughed out loud, whose eyes carried questions the world never answered. She was the CEO everyone admired, the woman who rebuilt a collapsing tech empire before 40, yet every evening she returned home to 3 identical cribs, 3 small hands reaching out, and a silence that made her chest tighten with guilt and fear. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that change lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories reach hearts across the world. Evelyn had adopted the triplets 2 years earlier after a late-night visit to a children's home she funded quietly through her company. They were just weeks old then, tiny and fragile, already bound together by something deeper than blood. Doctors later confirmed what she sensed early on: all 3 were profoundly deaf. The specialists spoke in careful tones about therapy, about patience, about limits. Evelyn listened, nodded, signed checks, and promised herself she would do everything right. But doing everything right on paper did not teach her how to fill the long evenings when her children watched her lips move without understanding, when bedtime stories ended in confusion rather than comfort. Nannies came and went, each well-qualified, each kind, yet none could reach the children beyond basic care. The triplets remained silent, observant, distant, their laughter something Evelyn had only imagined. The day she posted the ad for a nanny felt like surrender. CEO seeks nanny for her silent triplets. Experience with special needs preferred. What she did not write was how desperate she was to hear even a sound of joy, how she would have traded every award on her shelf for a single moment of connection. Applications flooded in, impressive resumes, polished smiles. She interviewed them all with professional efficiency, but her heart stayed unmoved. Until the last file landed on her desk, slightly rumpled, handwritten notes in the margins, and a simple name at the top: Daniel Brooks. Daniel arrived on a rainy afternoon, his coat damp, his posture calm in a way that felt unfamiliar in Evelyn's high-pressure world. He was younger than she expected, a single father, according to the file, with a 7-year-old daughter. No formal nanny training, no elite references. Evelyn almost dismissed him, but something in his eyes made her pause. They were not ambitious eyes or nervous ones, they were patient, as if time had taught him lessons no classroom ever could. She led him to the playroom where the triplets sat on the floor, lining up wooden blocks with solemn concentration. What happened next altered the course of all their lives. Daniel did not reach for the children or raise his voice. He simply sat at their level, hands moving gently through the air, his face animated, expressive. His fingers told stories Evelyn could not understand, but the children could. Within moments, the blocks scattered as 3 small faces lit up with surprise. Then, for the first time since Evelyn had known them, the triplets laughed. Not loudly, not with sound, but with their whole bodies. Their shoulders shook, their eyes sparkled, their hands flapped in delighted response. The silence was still there, but it was alive now, filled with meaning. Evelyn felt her knees weaken as she watched. This was not something therapy charts prepared her for. This was connection. This was someone speaking her children's language without being asked. Daniel later explained, in simple terms, that his daughter was deaf too, that sign language was the first language of his home, that silence had never felt empty to him. Evelyn hired him on the spot, her decision driven less by logic and more by the pounding of her heart. The days that followed were filled with small miracles. Daniel brought rhythm into the house, routines that respected the children's world rather than forcing them into a hearing one. Mornings became playful lessons, hands dancing through the air, faces exaggerating emotions, laughter becoming a daily presence. Evelyn watched from doorways and staircases, learning quietly, ashamed of how much she had missed. At night, she practiced signs alone, her fingers clumsy, her determination fierce. For the first time since becoming a mother, she felt hope instead of fear. Yet change rarely comes without resistance. Evelyn's board began questioning her focus, whispering that motherhood was distracting her from her duties. Social circles judged her choice of a male nanny, a single father no less, as unconventional. Daniel faced his own challenges, balancing his daughter's needs with a demanding job, sensing the invisible wall between him and Evelyn's world of wealth and influence. Despite the warmth growing inside the house, the outside pressure threatened to crack it. One evening, after a brutal day of meetings, Evelyn returned home to find the triplets asleep on the couch, their heads resting against Daniel's shoulders, his arms around them in quiet protection. His daughter sat nearby, drawing pictures of hands signing hearts. The sight broke something open inside Evelyn. She realized then that leadership was not about control, but about trust. About allowing others to bring what you cannot. As weeks turned into months, the triplets began to flourish. Their vocabulary in sign language expanded, their personalities emerging distinctly. One was mischievous, another thoughtful, the third fiercely curious. Evelyn learned to listen with her eyes, to feel communication rather than hear it. Her world slowed, softened. She adjusted her schedule, declined unnecessary meetings, fought for accessibility initiatives within her company, inspired by her children's silent strength. Daniel, too, found healing in the Carter household. The loss of his wife years earlier had left scars he carried quietly. Teaching the triplets, watching Evelyn grow into her motherhood, gave him a sense of purpose he thought he had lost. There were moments of unspoken understanding between him and Evelyn, shared smiles across the room, late-night conversations without words, just the acknowledgement of shared battles and hopes. The real test came when a media scandal threatened Evelyn's company, investors panicking, headlines cruel and relentless. Advisors urged her to send the children away temporarily, to focus fully on damage control. Old instincts tempted her to comply. But then she remembered the first day of laughter, the way her children's hands told her they felt safe. She chose differently. She brought the triplets to her office one afternoon, letting them see her world, letting her world see them. She signed during meetings, made silence visible, turned vulnerability into strength. The scandal passed, but the message remained. Empathy was not weakness, it was leadership. Near the end of this journey, if this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you of the power of patience and understanding, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in love beyond words, and subscribe to support more stories like this. On a quiet evening a year later, Evelyn stood in the garden as the triplets played, their laughter silent yet radiant, Daniel and his daughter beside them. She realized that the nanny she sought had not just taught her children to laugh, he had taught her to listen, to truly see. The family they had become was not traditional, not simple, but it was real, built on compassion rather than perfection. Please comment below and tell us what part of this story moved you the most and why your voice matters here. As the sun set, painting the sky in colors no sound could describe, Evelyn knew that silence had never been the enemy. It was the space where love learned to speak, where broken pieces found each other, and where a CEO, a single dad, and 3 silent children discovered that the loudest joys are often the ones you feel, not hear.